Hi, I'm Gavin,
And I'm Ryan.
and welcome back to the S.O.U.N.D Project. So today, when this episode is being released, it's the start of a new year.
It is.
And we thought it'd be really fun to go through and recap all the things that happened in 2023. Not all of them, because we can't have a 20-hour podcast. However, I thought it'd just be fun to kind of... when we're in the moment and working and getting through these projects day in and day out, it's sometimes hard to pause and look back at all the things that we accomplished over the years. And so I just thought it'd be fun to go kind of month by month, just hit some of the highlights.
Sure.
And some months are more interesting than others,
Yep.
I will say. But one thing I do want to say is that we're just so thankful that you guys even care to watch these episodes. I think that it's pretty amazing when you came up with the idea to come up with this podcast. My initial reaction was like, who's going to want to listen to anything that we say? But I was totally wrong.
It's been great.
Yeah, the reaction has been awesome, and we just really appreciate that.
Yep.
And so, we just want to share with you a little bit about what we have done over the year. January is one of those months where it's pretty light on things, and it's kind of coming out of the holidays. Like usually January is a little slower. Like we're busy doing projects, but it's a little slower than other months.
Sure.
This coming January is not the case. That is not the case. But last January in 2023, we did start a project for the Carmel Library, which anytime we get local projects near where we live, it's really fun. And with the library being here in Carmel, where we're based, they have a recording studio there that we didn't design it, but they asked us to come in and fix some sound isolation issues. So it was neat to be a part of that. And then we also started a project for Brian Ross in Carmel. Well, he's in Westfield.
Westfield, technically.
Yeah. But he has an audiophile room that's a really cool space. And so it was neat to have some local projects that we could go around to. The other thing that happened was that Andrew Marshall, who is the drummer for Billie Eilish and Phineas, who was just on Saturday Night Live recently, which is very, very cool to see him on that. We started a project with him. We're designing a studio in his backyard in Los Angeles. A drum studio for him. So that started back in January and kind of initial talks and everything like that. And man, it's a really slow month when the last thing I have on here is that I had septum surgery.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I had a deviated septum and I had it fixed and I can breathe properly, which set me up for the rest of the year to actually be able to work efficiently.
That's true.
Since I could finally breathe. So that was great. So moving on from January to February. February was the first filming day for the S.O.U.N.D Project.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah. February 2nd of 2023 is the first day that we filmed things because, and again, that was kind of like a new venture for us. Didn't know how it was going to be received or if we were just speaking into the void, but turns out we weren't. So that's awesome.
That's crazy. That was a year ago. Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it was that long ago. That's crazy.
Yeah. Another thing that we did in February was, and I'll let you talk about this a little bit. We did some work with IU, Indiana University Kokomo's campus. They have a social media class there.
Yeah. That also, I can't believe that was a year ago. But basically, so my wife Lexi, her first degree was in communications and then new media art and technology. So it was basically a blend of like social media management along with graphic design. And so one of her final classes was to basically do a project with a local company. And so they did, I forget who she got paired with, but they manage, a social media campaign essentially and run the company's social media page. And so my wife loved the whole concept and loved that project. So we reached out to her teacher, to see hey, I remember you doing this. I don't know if it's still a class. So I reached out to her, found out it is still a class, and offered us as a possibility for someone to come work with us. And so we did. So there was a group of 4 or 5 students that are a range of degrees, but all to some degree involved with social media. And so we partnered up with them and they helped us out with, some of our social media calendar, They helped with like just some posting ideas, and so so it was fun. It was like a really cool way for us to get involved with a university and people that haven't started their career yet, but gave them some like real world experience.
Yeah,
it was fun.
That was really cool. We went up for the initial kind of kickoff of that program. Like we went up and attended the class, and been a while since I had attended a class at a university, but and then we worked mostly remotely with them, but then you went back for their final presentation too.
Yep. So. Yeah, and then we had like 3 or 4 like in-person meetings I went up for and everything. That was just kind of like a check-in, and so it was cool.
Super fun. The other thing in February that we had, Warren Hewart from Produce Like a Pro put us in contact with Lucy Kalantari, and she's one of our clients now, and she's building a studio. Originally, it was supposed to be in her basement, and Oscar, who I don't want to give away what March has in store, but Oscar went and visited Lucy, and we surveyed the basement and put together some layouts for it. And granted, the basement was not ideal spot for her to put a studio. And then I think about a month later, her basement flooded. And it was not the first time that it flooded, and she's like, "I'm really nervous about putting a studio in my basement that floods all the time."
Yeah,
which is a good. I mean, rightly so. She should be concerned about that. So now we're doing it in her backyard. But she's just really talented artist. She writes a lot of kids music. She has been nominated for Grammys, and also she's doing all the music for a new Dora the Explorer series that's coming out next year. So it's been super fun working with Lucy, and that started all back in February as well. All right, so March.
Womp womp.
I know. The first bullet point here is that in March, Oscar moved to Schenectady, New York, which is very exciting for him. And having a presence, Haversack Designs having a presence in New York is great. Yeah. But we miss having Oscar here.
Do miss having Oscar here.
Yeah. It's tough with him not being in the office. But obviously we can connect remotely, and then he comes back to visit often because his family is here. But that was one of the major things that happened in March. Also, Luke and I traveled out to Pacific Northwest. We did a trip where we filmed some studio tours. We started up, I think we flew into Seattle and then drove up to Bellingham, Washington, which is where Brooklyn Duo's studio is. And we'll put links for all of these studio tours so you can watch them again. But that was a really fun trip because we did Brooklyn Duo one day, and then the very next day we filmed at Oak Hollow in Oregon City, Oregon, and just kind of traveling around. Also during that visit, I got to meet with some current clients, Gabriel Tatusek and Rick Malloy as well. So it was a whirlwind, just a lot of stuff going on, but that's how we do our trips. Like we just try to get as much done as possible in a short amount of time. But both those studio tours turned out awesome, and it was really neat to see people's reaction to it. It's like they're two widely different studios. The one of them's all white and kind of a classic modern look, and the other one's super warm and natural wood. And but that was a fun trip. The other thing that happened in March is that I did like one of the best decisions I've done in a long time, where I finally invested in myself a little bit. I invest in other people a lot. I try to. Then I always put myself on the back burner. I'm just I'll be fine. I'll just grind through it. But I joined Writer Leadership Solutions. It's a leadership group. We meet in Chicago once a month. And I've talked about it a little bit on this podcast, but it has been a game changer for me. It's been, it's just one of those things where as the company has grown and now we have 7 people total, I didn't set out to start a business to necessarily be a boss.
Right.
I did it because I wanted to design studios and step out on my own to do that. But I didn't really think about having employees, and I want to be the best boss that I can. And while I think I'm a pretty good one right now, there's so much more that I could do. And so this leadership group is just awesome. It's me and 10 other guys, and it's run by Dave Ryder and Jules Wilhelm. And it's just a great reset every month. And it also just helps me focus on ways that I can be better, both as a boss, but also as a husband, as a father, it's just every month I leave that place just energized and excited about doing new things and getting better.
I want to call that one out specifically just because I feel like every time that like you go on one of those trips, then like we usually talk at some point on your way back, and it's just like, man, like the thoughts that come from that, and just like the thought process of like, wow, like it's usually like fairly heavy topics, but they're like really important too. So and then the fact that Dave Ryder came into the office not too long ago and did something like just a kind of mini version of that with the whole team, and it was just like, whoa, like this was amazing.
Yeah,
like, so
it's super fun. We have more plans for that next year. So it'll be great. The other thing, we did a project at Purdue Hagel Hall, which is like their band and orchestra building. We did some testing for LEED certification. We didn't design that building, but they asked us to come in and verify that it hit LEED certification. Also started a project at the Palladium, which is our closest project ever. It's a 5-minute walk down the Monon Trail from our office right here, and that's just a beautiful concert hall that we're helping out with a new sound system. We're not doing the sound system, but we did some testing that Force Technology is using to put in a new sound system in the space. Also, we hired 2 new employees in March. A lot of things happened in March. Like Oscar moved. We have 2 new employees came in. It was Juan and Cam started on March 13th. And so we grew to 7 people total. And it's been a joy having them around as well.
That one's another one that like, I think they started right after Oscar left. So it was like we were all adjusting to figuring out, all right, what's it like to have a remote employee? And then here's 2 more employees. Like,
Had I to do it again, I might have staggered it maybe a month. Like it might not have been the best.
Hey, we made it work though.
Yeah, it worked out fine. And then the last thing that I have written down here for March is that I got invited by my kids go to a Montessori school in Westfield, and my daughter Sylvia, in her class, they sometimes have parents who have different professions come in and present to the class. And she's 4 years old, and it's preschool class, and I got to go in and teach them about acoustics, which is really fun. I had little examples that we simulated. I recorded Sylvia speaking, and then we simulated her in like a concert hall or a big cave, or like did some like reverb time simulations, and the kids just couldn't think that was funnier. Like they just laughed and laughed every time I played those samples. But
that's awesome.
I love doing that.
Man, that's enough. I remember when you were like prepping for that, and it's like, holy cow, that was a year ago. That's wild.
It is pretty crazy. So that was the first quarter of the year. Then we take a deep breath, and there's still a lot more going on. I had a trip to Nashville in April that I went, kind of scheduled some things around. I do this sometimes where if there's a concert I really want to go to, I will schedule work around that. And my favorite place to see a show is the Ryman in Nashville. I just love that venue. It sounds awesome. I've had just great memories of seeing shows there. And one of my favorite bands in college, which also was probably my biggest influence as far as songwriting is concerned, is a band called Caedmon's Call. In particular, songwriter Derek Webb, some of his contributions to the band. And they've been broken up for years and years. And they had a reunion show at the Ryman. They played 2 nights in a row, and I went to both nights. And it was just super fun because I'd seen them twice when I was in college, but then that it just wasn't possible to see them over the last 20 years or so. So that was super fun. And then around that, I worked in some work as well. I met with Keith Smith, who is Tasha Layton's husband. He also plays as a multi-instrumentalist in Toby Mac's band. And he's just awesome guy. He's thinking about doing a studio that we might be involved with, and but it was really fun to kind of hang out with him, and we toured his house and like looked at some of the spaces that we might be putting a studio, and so that was really fun. Also visited with Colt Caperoon, which Colt, we're working on a Atmos conversion of his room right now, and so that was kind of one of the initial visits. Check out the room, take some measurements, and do that whole thing. And then in April was the NAMM show. And the NAMM show was a blast. I mean, it was cool to go out there. You, me, and Oscar all went out to the NAMM show. It's fun. We get like an Airbnb and get to stay there and kind of recap at the end of the day. It's just fun to hang out, and it was nice because it was just a month after Oscar had moved,
right?
So we get a chance to see him again and hang out. But the NAMM show, you can talk a little bit about that because it was kind of your baby to orchestrate.
NAMM show was great. I mean, as most of you know, it's the like basically where a bunch of manufacturers will come out and announce like their new products. But we're using it as a chance to start making new relationships with manufacturers. Just because like previously when like before I had started working here, like everything was just intake essentially for sales. And so this was the first time that we tried doing outreach. And so we started with, meeting with different manufacturers and seeing like what their process was and how we could fit into their process when they're putting like consoles into studios and things. But yeah, it was great. Like going out to NAMM was awesome. We had a lot of fun, like just the three of us being out there.
And we also got to go see David Carey, one of our clients. We went and had dinner with him and his wife, and we did a Atmos room in his converted garage. And it's a really cool space. We got to listen to some tracks in Atmos and
that was
hang
awesome.
out for a little bit and pet his dog. You know? And so the dogs are always the highlight of these visits. So if you're a potential client out there and you have a dog, we're probably a great fit for that. I think that would be awesome.
The other one while we were out there was going through Electric Feel too. While it was torn apart.
That true.
Was awesome.
Yeah, we were working with Electric Feel. They have a studio there on Sunset, and we did a renovation because they were upgrading to bigger speakers. And at the time, the soffits that their old speakers were in just were not adequate. Of course, they put out amazing records out of that space. Like a lot of Post Malone's music is done there. And but they're like, okay, if we're changing speakers, let's redo these soffits. And then we also helped with their B room as well. And Danielle and Nick toured us around. They're some of the best people.
They're awesome.
And looking forward, actually, in January, we'll get to see them again.
We will. The
So,
last thing I want to call out for NAMM too, like in addition to meeting like the Electric Feel folks, was I got to meet one of my favorite mix engineers, which was Brad Smalling.
That's right.
That was super cool.
Yeah, from Evergroove Studios in Colorado. Yeah, Brad's awesome. We've talked to him over the years, and then he was doing something at the Focal booth, I think is when.
He was talking about mixing. Story of the Year had an album come out last year that was in Atmos, and so Brad was on a panel talking about mixing in Atmos. That was just like super cool.
I didn't know Brad was going to be on that panel. I was there. We were both there because Luca Perlesi and Robert Guzman from Studio DMI were there. And I was like, oh, but Brad's here too. This is great. So that was really cool. And we also got to first time meeting in person Andrew Marshall.
That's right.
We had lunch with him as well.
That's right.
Yeah, NAMM's always a good time. I mean, there's a gap where in my previous job, I went to NAMM every year for 8 years straight, and then I think I just needed a breather. I had been NAMM'd out, I think. But I definitely enjoy going back, and it'll be fun this year as well.
It will be.
So after NAMM, right after it, we flew straight to Vegas. I flew straight to Vegas. I did one day at the NAB show while I was out there. Just kind of walked the floor. And Luke from More Than Media joined me out there too. He came to NAB as well. But then we did a studio tour of Studio DMI. Which is up on our YouTube channel. You can check that one out if you haven't already. And that was super fun. The guys from Studio DMI, like everybody there, is like the best type of people, and so it's not only do we get to tour a cool space and share it with everybody, but then get to be around them for a little bit.
They treat everyone like family. It's amazing.
It's really great. And then the final thing we did while we were in Vegas is that we shot a podcast with Sabrina Seidman.
That's right.
And she just is amazing at everything she does, it seems. And she runs social media channels, and she's just involved with a lot of different types of things, different courses that she puts on, and also just tips and techniques that she makes available to the public.
And her, I think it's Instagram is blowing up. I mean, I forget how many followers she had when we started working with her.
It was about 70,000, and I think I was looking at her page a few days ago. It was like 100,000 149,000.
Yeah.
So it's like doubling in a year.
Yeah,
so
which is amazing.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. So that was April. That's a lot for April.
Yeah.
So May, when I was up there for one of my leadership groups for up in Chicago, the Philo conference was there.
Yeah.
And that is the Philo stands for First In, Last Out. And that is usually the tech department at any church is the first in and the last out. And so it's all about church technology. And there was manufacturers that had booths, and then there's different talks that were given. And it was just a really fun experience. I'd never been to the conference before.
Yep.
And I figured I'm 20 minutes away. Might as well just stay an extra day and go to the conference. But got to catch up with a lot of people that I really enjoy meeting with, like Amplio Solutions, or Amplio Systems is up there, and they were one of the main sponsors of Philo, and so they had a booth and got to interact with them. And but yeah, it's just a really fun conference. It's something that definitely would want to go back again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Also in May, we had our Michigan Whirlwind trip.
That trip was amazing, though.
Yeah, it was one of the. Sometimes when we do these trips, again, we try to link a bunch of these things together to get them all done in like 3 or 4 days.
Definitely pack it in. That's for sure.
this one was probably maybe even a little much, but we started off by doing a lunch and learn at KRM Architecture in Anderson, Indiana, which they're a really great architecture firm that we've done quite a few projects with over the years. And then after that, we drove to Kokomo and met with Jeremy Mang, who's a friend of yours.
Yeah. So I don't even remember how Jeremy and I originally met, but we're just both from Kokomo, both into like recording. For Jeremy, it's his full-time job. Like he runs a studio out of Kokomo. And so we were talking with him about just like anything that we could potentially do to help out, like improve his space. But then also doing some content with him, which we've done a podcast now with him. But yeah, so stopped by Jeremy's place, got to see him again. And
and if you don't know Jeremy, he goes online by Recording Studio Loser is his channel. And just puts out really cool stuff. He started a podcast this year as well, which is great.
Yes, he did.
And he did a podcast with us, and just a great human being.
He's an awesome dude.
Good person to follow out there. The next part of this trip, we drove to Mishawaka, Indiana. So we're making our way up north, and we're doing a project for Heroes Camp, which is this awesome organization, faith-based organization that is a safe haven for kids that don't have fathers at home. And it's a place they can go after school, and there's basketball, there's a weight room, there's a barber shop, there's a kitchen for them to learn how to cook. And now, very soon, there's going to be a studio that they can all operate out of. And so that was a very fun trip, not only because we got to see kind of progress and what was going on, but we got to play some basketball.
Yeah, we did.
Which was super fun. They even gave us spare shoes that I could wear, so I wasn't hooping in my dress shoes. But yeah, we played some games and had some good talks.
Heroes Camp is like, I mean, it's hard to even put it into words, but like Heroes Camp is like a very emotional like situation because all of the kids there are like ecstatic to be there. The staff is amazing, but it's just the kids that are there because they didn't have the best like background, like something wrong happened to get them there. And so it's just like so unfortunate that that's the case, but the way that facility operates is incredible.
Because sometimes that's the case and there's no one there to help, but Heroes Camp is there to build relationships with them. They do Bible studies with the kids. They have all these different events, and it's a place where they matter, and they belong, and so it's always fun. I can't wait for that studio to be finished. I'm sure that we will do a studio tour up there and check it out. But so then after Heroes Camp, we went on up to Traverse City, Michigan. This is all in the same day, by the way. Like the lunch and learn, Jeremy Mang, Heroes Camp, and driving up to Traverse City, which is like an 8-hour drive from here anyway. That was all in one day. And we got up there, we spent the night, and then we went over to White Rhino, which is Ryan Crisfield's studio in his home. And we did some initial testing. It's just the room was already built. but we just needed to test it to see like what we needed to do for interior acoustical treatment. But Ryan was awesome.
He was
really, really cool guy. I know you had talked to him initially on the discovery call.
That was the first job that I did an on-site with you. So that was the first time I had ever done like on-site testing.
That's right.
But yeah, Ryan was amazing. We had talked several times. He was a referral from Brian Loney at Sweetwater. And so yeah, we had a couple of discovery calls, and like Ryan and I just kind of hit it off from the get-go. Which was awesome. And I'll never forget like it was like our first call. One of the last things that he asked me was like, who's the best basketball player that came out of Indiana? And I did not answer properly. And he was like, no, it's Larry Bird. And so once we got to his place, like I got out of the car and he's like, Larry Bird. I'm like, yep. Yeah. So Larry now Bird's, I know who the best Indiana player is.
That's the correct answer, but it's okay. You get a pass.
We know now.
So after we tested Ryan's place, the next thing, we actually had dinner that night with Ryan and Chip Freeman from S.O.U.N.D Studio. And you had not met Chip before.
I hadn't.
So that was super fun to get like I guess a former client, even though Chip doesn't feel like former. He always feels like he's a part of the family. But to just all get together for dinner and kind of connect those two, because I could see them working on things together.
Totally.
In the future.
And we got to go check out Chip's studio after that, which was awesome for me because of the fact that like Chip's is my favorite studio that we've done. And so like seeing and hearing that in person was like, whoa, like it was kind of like a kid's dream come true.
And was that, I can't remember, was that the first studio of ours that you'd heard in person as well?
No, David Carey's at NAM.
Oh, that's right.
Was the first one. But,
that's right. Yeah.
But I think it was the second one though.
Yeah. So it's always fun to visit Chip. And then on the way back, we ended up visiting with Mike Cervantes in Grand Rapids. He's a mastering engineer that's amazingly talented.
Yeah, he is.
So we went over and checked out his studio and talked about potential new studio.
He was another one that it was kind of surreal to meet him because he has like mixed and or mastered like so many albums that I listened to like as a kid. And so it's just like, whoa, like you are like the reason that I've listened to like some of these albums. Like that's amazing. So.
That was super cool. And then right after that, we ended up having lunch with Drew from Grand Rapids First, which is a project that we're doing. It's in the framing stage right now, and it's going to be completed here in the new year. And it's just an amazing facility at a church there called Grand Rapids First, and we are just excited. We've talked about it before on this podcast, and it's going to be just an amazing place for worship leaders to come and create albums. And so
that's another one. Like I forget what we called it, but it's just like
it was the feel good trip of the year.
That's what it was. Just because there's so many things that were like just community outreach and helping other people, and it was a cool trip.
We are also not done in May.
No,
and not even done with that trip.
No,
because like after that visit with Grand Rapids First, we ended up driving to West Lafayette, Indiana.
To go back to Purdue.
So we did that Purdue Hagel Hall project that I mentioned. The first round of testing. And the testing has to be done like when the students aren't in there, and so it's usually very late at night. And the first round of testing, we got back to the office, and all the data was corrupted. And that was not a good day.
No.
I remember having to leave the office and just go on a walk on the trail for a little while because it was just awful.
Which is so not you. Like for you to have to walk out of the office is like just a not you thing.
It is. It was not a great day, but it was something that luckily this was a project that's in like an hour away from us that we could go back and do it again. But in the second time that we did it, I had optimized that process to where the first time it took 8 hours, the second time it took 5 hours.
Right.
So Juan went with me on the first trip, you came with me on the second trip, and we got it done. So and made sure before we left that the data was not corrupted.
Yes.
The other thing that happened in May was it was our intern's first day.
Wow.
So George Waller and Nate Pitts joined us. George came up from University of South Florida down in Tampa, and Nate is from Purdue, which is I think it was the first time. I want to make sure this is correct, but Yeah, I think it's the first time that someone from out of state came to become an intern.
That's awesome.
Yeah, at least someone that went to school out of state.
Right.
But yeah, that summer was awesome with those guys. I mean,
they killed it.
Stellar interns. Just did so many cool projects for us, and it was just a really great experience. I can't say enough about George and Nate. I could go on. This podcast
amazing.
would be very long if that was the case. But that was their first day. And then the other thing that happened in May, it was we got to release our studio tour of Josh Dunn.
That's right.
And so that was a huge thing for us. It actually had been recorded for a while, and we'd kind of been waiting for the right moment to release it. And for it to finally be out in the world. And to this day, it's our most watched video on YouTube.
Yep.
I think it has over 70,000 views at the time of filming this. But it was fun to get that out in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so now we're in June. June, we had a couple. Anytime we have interns over the summer, like we like to try to find projects where they can go with us and shadow us on job sites to do testing. So we had a couple projects, one at Sycamore Presbyterian and one at UBC Beaver Creek, that we needed to go and do some testing at these churches. And so they came and shadowed me and Juan on those jobs. We also started working with Rob Scallon, the YouTuber that is based out of Chicago, and we're kind of still in the beginning stages of it, but we're helping him maybe renovate his studio.
Yep.
So more to come on that in the future. But that was really fun to go up. I actually went up and filmed some things with him, just looking at the room as it is currently. You know, like it's you know, he admits, he's like, this isn't the best studio in the world. Like it's kind of like, pulled together, but it's going to be pretty special when it's all said and done. The next thing was a Wisconsin trip with Tracy. So Tracy Roberts, who works here, she's been working with me and Oscar heavily on a project for University of Wisconsin Green Bay.
Yep.
And this was the first business trip that Tracy went on, and it was kind of fortuitous because the first trip being a trip to Green Bay, Wisconsin, because she's a lifelong Packer fan, and so is her dad. And so we got to go up there. Actually, one of our clients, Mike Haddad from Fox River Studios, we met him for dinner at Lambeau Field, which is
so cool.
really fun for all of us, but Tracy especially. And then we had meetings the next day with University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and kind of kicking off the project and touring the spaces and everything like that. And that project's going to be really fun. I think completion of that project is going to be first quarter of this year.
Oh, cool.
This coming year, and it's nine rooms total that we're doing. One of them's an Atmos room. Just going to be a phenomenal space. But one of the things that came out of that, Mike Haddad is such a nice guy. He's one of the nicest clients we've ever had. Yeah. And he offered us, Tracy and I, 2 tickets to go to a Green Bay Packers game this year.
Yeah.
And his tickets are nice. Like he is, he's on the board for the Packers, and his tickets straddle the 50-yard line at club level.
Right.
And it was one of those things where he had 2 tickets for this game, and while I would love to go to Lambeau, I've also realized that I'm not the biggest football fan. I'm more of a basketball guy.
Yep.
And the fact that Tracy is a huge fan, and she's a fan because her dad is a fan. Yep. I gave the tickets to Tracy, and her and her dad recently went up, and the Packers won.
Yeah,
during the
she
game.
had an awesome time. Like I remember her coming back from that.
Yeah, that was great. So thank you, Mike Haddad, for that experience. It was one to remember for sure. On that trip, we also visited current client Brian Culbertson on the way up there. So we just had a really good time, and it's something that we'll be going back here in the new year to do testing at that space, and it's going to be a fun project.
You guys got to see him recently too in concert, right?
Yeah. That's actually
you're spoiling it.
You're giving away like highlights that are coming up. I know that people are waiting for this stuff, and you're just
giving it away. All right,
it's all right.
Gotta keep looking at the list.
Also, in June, we did Sweetwater Gear Fest.
Yeah.
And we obviously work with Sweetwater a ton. And in the past, when Gear Fest was more in person, we'd have a booth or we'd give talks and things like that. And now that it's more streaming and online, they invited us because we're content creators now,
Yeah.
which is crazy to think about. But we set up in a room and we filmed 8 podcasts while we were there at GearFest, and that was a very fun experience.
Something I'm noticing that is not on your list for June is InfoComm was also in June last year.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a highlight for me; it was a highlight for you.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it was the first time that HD's ever been to InfoComm, right? Or had a presence at InfoComm?
I had. Trying to think if I'd ever gone as Haversick Designs, but I think it might have been.
I was gonna say because I've been there with other companies, but this was I think the first for HD, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so went down, met with a bunch of AV integrators. It was like a 4 or 5 day show, I think, and so yeah, it was great.
And then vacation right after that.
Yeah, and then I flew my wife down, and because it was in Orlando last year, so yeah, my wife flew down, and then we were down there for it was our first vacation since being married together, which was, we've done like smaller trips, but that was the first one that was like a big like actual vacation, which was awesome. So
that's great. I can't believe I didn't put that on the list.
How dare you? Come on.
I know. And the last one in June is when we got word that 3 of our studios were selected for Mix Magazine's Class of 2023 issue.
Yeah.
And so we had Tim Henson's studio, Legacy Soundworks, and Fontaine Records all got selected. First year that we'd ever had 3 in there. We've had
awesome.
2 in there every once in a while, but
sure.
But 3 was pretty special. So that's when we got word. July is a little light in highlights, but one of the big ones was I took I think it was 5 of us or 6 of us total. We went to see Post Malone in concert because we work with Electric Feel. We had done Louis Bell Studio, who is Post Malone's producer and co-writer, and Danielle from Electric Feel hooked us up with amazing tickets.
Yeah.
Like it was general admission, and then the very next row it's us, it's like, so it was a really fun night. Nate, one of our interns, he just kept talking about, he's like, what kind of place, like how often do people get an internship and they get to go to Post Malone show for work? But yeah, that was a super nice night. Thank you, Danielle, for those tickets. And then we also started a project at Indiana University Musical Arts Center where we're doing a couple renovations of band rooms, and we took the interns down and did some testing there too. We're doing that project with Spring Point Architects, based out of Bloomington, Indiana. In August, we had office hours at Sweetwater.
Yep.
So we did that. We go up there quite often and just show off different projects that we've had or new services that we're offering. Like just let the sales engineers know what we're doing, and that's always a fun time. Also, another perk of the job is that I got to take my niece to Lollapalooza, and so Billie Eilish was headlining Lollapalooza. So Andrew Marshall, who we're working with, is I talked to him. He's like, "Yeah, you should come out, and I'll get you guys tickets." And really funny story about the tickets. I won't go into it too much, but Andrew was so amazing because each ticket that he gave us, it was supposed to give us like backstage access so we could go hang out with him.
Right.
And it was like we ended up with like 4 wristbands because none of them quite did what we wanted them to do.
Right.
And but it was super fun once we got that all sorted out, and the show was amazing.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Andrew, for that. We also I continued up after that with it was Take Your Niece to Work Day because I went up to in Wisconsin to Don and Becky Kagan's studio and did some initial testing, and we're working on that, kind of finalizing details on that project right now. Also did some testing at Robert Johnson's studio, which I'm very excited for that one to be done. It's probably going to be done here before Christmas.
Cool.
And we started that project in June of 2020, and it just, with delays and COVID and all different other things, like it's just been a slow process, but it's almost finished right now. Like Simplified Acoustics is doing the final interior treatment, and
nice.
And it's going to be done real soon. Also visited Colt Caparoon again. Went down to Nashville for that. And then Marco Capone from Ketchum and Walton took the whole staff out to Topgolf.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
That was a good time. Marco helps us out a lot he's a rep for Kinetics, noise control, and some different brands, and so it was fun just to have a day, and happened to be the intern's last day as well. So it was kind of a nice coincidence that he wanted to take us out that week. But that was a sad day. Like interns leaving it was rough, because they were such a big part of our summer, and they were actually where we're filming this. This is kind of where they lived for the summer.
Yeah,
not lived. They worked for
where
the
they
summer.
were,
where they were stationed. But it was their last day, so it was a little hard to have them leave and go back to school.
Yeah.
We also filmed the Butler studio tour during August, and that was up on our YouTube channel now, and you can watch that. And another thing I put on the highlight, for me, it was a highlight as I took my son Grayson to Dad Camp. Which Dad Camp's this organization where it's like just really shines a focus on the father-son relationship or father-daughter. My daughter's not old enough to go, but when she is, we'll go as well. But just an awesome weekend just to connect one-on-one with Grayson, and just it's a pretty amazing time. We and it was one of those things where going into it, Grayson was unsure about it, and then it came off on the other side where he's like, I want to go every single year, and so that's what we're going to do.
That's one of those things like the writer leadership group where it's just like you came back beaming from that.
It was like the 1-2 punch. I think I had Dad Camp ended on Sunday, and then I drove straight up to Chicago and did leadership group the next day. And part of that inspired the next bullet point, which in August I stopped drinking soda.
That's right.
Which soda is like my vice, I drank way too much of it. Sometimes I feel like I just sustained myself, and like how I'm always going was with Coca-Cola. And I haven't had a single Coca-Cola or any soda since August. Which is crazy. I feel a lot better though. I feel a lot better. I am going to bed earlier than I used to, because I'd go to bed at 1 a.m. every day. But now I'm going to bed the same day that I woke up.
There you go. That's a good start.
A little goal for me. That was
baby steps.
So that was the end of August. September, I actually got invited when we did the studio tour. I got invited by Mark Harris to teach a class at his at Butler University.
Oh, that's right.
So I went there and did that, which I used to do that every year, and then I just kind of fell off doing that. And so I always enjoy teaching, and it was a really fun class where we went through what we do for our business, and also case studies and different things like that. The other thing that happened in September is that I bought tickets for everybody to go see Snarky Puppy.
That was awesome.
Here in Fishers, Indiana. And so the whole company went out and saw them and went to dinner beforehand. And so it's always nice just to, we work so hard every day. It's like good just to take a pause and do something fun, So, I mean, what we do is fun, but
it is.
It's,
it's different having just the social, we're just going to hang out.
Another highlight, I put a lot of personal highlights in here, but in September, I took my son out to Universal Studios, the Super Nintendo World. It opened in March, and my son just loves Super Mario, and he had a Super Mario birthday in January, and so I was like, let's go. And so we went for 3 days out to Universal Studios and just had the most amazing time. Super fun. Let's see. I also went up to Michigan again. We've had a lot of projects in Michigan this year. So I've spent a bunch of time up there. And Rod McKenzie, we're doing a studio for him right now with All Pro Integrated Systems. And so I went up on site to figure out like what part of the house we were going to put a studio in, take some measurements, and it's that one's coming together really well. It's the renderings are done, and that'll happen next year. Let's see. So also we did filming for 416 Wabash, which just came out, last week, I believe, as airing this episode. And so that's a really cool place here in Indianapolis. And so it's fun to be able to tour a local studio and showcase that a little bit.
That one was cool. I really liked 416.
And I also went out to Overland Park, Kansas, and visited T-Mobile. Which they're my provider for my cell phone, which is kind of cool. But they have some conference rooms and things on their campus that they need some help with. So I went out there and did a site visit. And then you gave this away already, but the staff went out and saw. We saw Brian Culbertson at the Old National Center here in town, and one of our clients is a super talented musician. Show was awesome, high energy, and looking forward to seeing him again when he comes through another time. All right, we're down to the last quarter. All right, so October, So October, I was actually contacted by my church, Mercy Road Church here in Carmel. They had an idea of wanting to put a studio on campus, and I was like, I am all for this. And so we're handling that project for them and designing out that space. And it's just a one-room control room / writing room that is going to be built next year, which is going to be super fun. We also did the Ohio studio tour with Luke and I jumped in a car and went and filmed at Stone Soup Recording Studios in Maumee, Ohio, and also Star Sound Studios in North Royalton, Ohio, up near Cleveland. And then we also tacked on a Theo Von show. We went and saw Theo Von that night in Cleveland. Those are not released yet, but they will be soon. We also filmed a lot of studio tours in the later half of the year, and so that's a lot of fun things for you guys to be able to view in 2024. We filmed at HDB Media in McCordsville, Indiana as well. And then I also took a trip to Dallas. We're working with Dirk Ulrich, which you talked to originally, and we're doing a studio for him. He founded Plugin Alliance, and he's also on the board at Native Instruments, and he's just like, you could talk a little bit about like some of the things he's done, how it's influenced what you do. Yeah,
it's just one of those things that I feel like just about anyone that is a recording engineer has probably used something that Dirk had a hand in, which is just insane. As far as like Plugin Alliance goes, like a lot of their plugins come with Pro Tools, so I mean, just a ton of my mixes like in college and after have included his plugins. And then with his involvement with Native Instruments, like I did an independent study in college that was based solely around Contact and how to like create instruments within Contact. And it's just like, man, like you were the like brain, or at least on the team like that created this. Like that's incredible.
That's awesome.
So that one was a cool one for me.
We're in the process of designing it right now. Construction diagrams are finished, renderings are finished as well. We're doing a 13.2.6 Atmos room with all PMC speakers. Like it's gonna sound amazing. Something else. So we'll definitely also do a studio tour of that one and show everybody that when it's all finished. The other thing we filmed, another filming in October, was University of St. Francis studio tour. So the podcast with University of St. Francis is already out, and then the full video will come out in 2024. In November, I keep putting these personal things on here, but it's just a highlight of my year. I got to take my daughter to see Frozen, the musical, the Broadway musical. It's touring, and it came through Indianapolis, and she just loves Frozen. Like she walks around the house just singing "Let It Go" and all the different songs from Frozen, and it was just cool. It's the first like Broadway show that she'd ever seen, and her just face lighting up was awesome. It also reminds me of my favorite dad joke in the absolute world. Like,
oh, I know what's coming.
Why can you never give Elsa a balloon? Because she'll let it go. Bam.
Womp,
sorry about that. Everybody just hit unsubscribe.
Negative followers now.
Sorry about that. Also, I went up in November to Northern Michigan University to do a kind of feasibility study of a potential new studio up there. Mike Peacock from Sweetwater is an alum of Northern Michigan University, and he gave them our contact information and working with Dan and Mark up there to see what we can come up with. So it was my first snow of the year. Like it was 2 inches of snow and about 13 degrees because it's way up in the upper peninsula of Michigan, but really fun visit. Also, we did a filming of Legacy Soundworks, the studio tour. So we released a podcast a couple weeks ago with them, and then a full studio tour is on the way. All right, now we're in December, and in December I had a trip down to Tampa where I got to visit a current client, Delon J. I got to meet with another client, AO, the producer, looking at a potential new project with him. And then I also got to go by and see Michael Alberti's studio, which I'd never visited in person. We designed that completely remotely, but it's just a really awesome spot. Like it's converted like a one-room studio in his garage, so it was really neat to see. Also visited Taylor University with Ryan Sloan from Sweetwater. We're looking at doing a project with them that's I won't say too much about it, but it's a really interesting concept that I'm excited for the challenge.
Yeah.
You know? And
that's one that when I think like when people ask like where is the studio world heading and like what does new age technology, like not to give too much away, but that's what I imagine is that studio. So I'm excited for that. If
we can pull it off and it will be one of those things where it's like, wow, like that I've never seen anything like that. I'm really being discreet about it, but it should be really fun. Also, as of filming right now, tomorrow we're doing our goals meeting for 2024, just kind of dreaming up everything that we want to do in the coming year and kind of recapping a little bit about what we did this past year. Yeah. And then the last week of the year, we're taking it off. Yeah. We worked really hard this year. As you can see, like we did a lot of different things.
And that's not even everything.
Yeah. We also have the holiday party this Friday night, which will be really fun. But just the last week of the year between Christmas and New Year's, I gave the staff the time off to be with their families and kind of recharge so that we can get after it next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like recapping it like that, it's just like, whoa. Yeah, we did so much this year.
Yeah, it's really fun. And next year is going to be with the things that we kind of have lined up in the first quarter of next year, and it's going to be probably just as busy, if not busier. Yep. But that's the way we like it. Like it's fun to do. We feel honored to be able to do what we do for a living, and for people to care about that and to watch this podcast or our studio tours and share it with friends and all of that. I mean, it's wild to me the impact that it's had so far, and I think that we're kind of only getting started on that front, which is very cool.
For sure. Now we've got a couple points for what's upcoming.
Oh yeah, so 2024, we got a few things going on. One is that we're going to have a new office. We're kind of looking for new office space right now. I think we gotta have a good option in place. So we got that coming up just to get some additional space, because with interns and everything else in here, and as we're growing, we're getting a little claustrophobic in the space that we are right now. And then the other big thing that just happened in the last week is that George Waller, who was one of our interns over the summer, he has agreed to join us full time starting in June. So that'll be super fun. We also have the NAMM show coming up in January out in Anaheim, and then we're also exhibiting. We're gonna have a booth at Infocom in Las Vegas in June.
Yep. Then we have the All Pro Expo in January as well.
Yeah, All Pro in Pensacola. Yeah. So it never ends, know, but it's awesome. It's super fun to be able to be involved with all the clients and partners and dealers and people that make this whole thing happen. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the S.O.U.N.D project. If there's anything that was a highlight for you in 2023, feel free to comment that below. We'd love to hear what's going on in your lives, and we'll see you next week.